I'm chairman of Enersize. I also basically work full-time with the company. Today we also have Sami Mykkänen here, CEO here. We're also happy to answer questions and have a chat with you later on. And as Biggie said before, this is a perfect day for us to have this presentation as we just released the prospectus on our upcoming IPO. So now we don't have to say, well, let's see, we might planning for June maybe. So, well, subscription starts Thursday and goes until 11th of May. And planned first date of trading is 15th of June. So, with everyone here has the opportunity to become an Enersize shareholder before sill och snaps, the midsummer. So, a little quick, doesn't work better even with new batteries. Doesn't work at all. No. Well, there you go. Yeah. Well, first of all, I don't know, how many here knows anything about industrial compressed air? Well, one hand, two hands, and one is bigger. Well, there you go. Well, that's quite usual because it's quite a boring thing. But it's a very important thing in manufacturing everything you see around you. Every mobile phone you have, every car you have, been a lot of compressed air that's been used to manufacture that. In fact, 5% of the global electricity use. That's a lot. 90% of all factories use it, so basically everywhere in the industry. And of course, 5% of the world's electricity consumption is a lot of money. And what Enersize do is basically use Internet of Things, advanced computer analysis, to be able to find weaknesses in these systems, optimize them, and save energy, and those save costs. And we do that with a really brilliant business idea, I would say, where we do a revenue share with the customer. So we take part of those savings. And not only do we save energy, but actually we give the customer a much better system. And these systems are the core in these factories. If the system stops, the whole factory stops, and that could cost millions of euros each day. So we have a very good value proposition for the customers. So this is what we're doing, and I think from what we see, we are pretty unique in the world of doing this. Compressed air is traditionally a quite boring thing, you know. It solves a lot of complicated problems in the production processes in the factories, so engineers love to use it. But it's a really, really, really bad way to convey energy inside the factories, and that's what it's used for. Basically, if you replace a compressed air motor with an electric motor, it's 20 times more efficient with an electric motor. So it's a really bad thing. It is used a lot. And we believe that we can change this globally. And to do that, you need to have a kind of autonomous system, a software that can find these weaknesses and tell it for people who are not experts. So this is the whole mission of Enersize, to become the global leader in this area. And the market today is very fragmented. There is a lot of small players all around. So we are very unique in what we're doing, and we think we're really years ahead of any competition. Talk more about that later. For now, I have a little film to show you, because we were recently in China, we're preparing for the IPO. So you will get a little preview of our IPO movie that will be released early next week. So I think we can roll that one. Well, that gave us a little bit more clear image, I think, of what we're really doing, where we are in China, in the real factories, with real customers. You could see a lot of them there. You will hear them later in our IPO films and more material that we will release. And as you can see, everything you saw in the movie was used compressed air to manufacture. You can see the robot sorting the glass in the flat glass plant. So how do we do this? I mean, that's a good question. So this image tried to show how we collect the data out from the whole factory. It's not just about measuring and compressor, it's taking the whole factory. And that's where the Internet of Things technology comes into place and makes it possible to have a lot more sensors and collect a lot more data over a much wider area. And that's something that Enersize started very early with in 2010 and basically took us to where we are today, and that's created the lead that we have. The data is then transferred over the cloud, internet, into servers. So we have the servers manage the data, process it, and doing the analysis. So we could then find the bottlenecks in the system. We could see what are causing inefficiencies in the system, which we could improve. And we can also see what can cause disturbances in the production facilities that are very important for our customers to keep running 100% all the time. And by doing this the proper way, by doing this analysis, by finding these weaknesses, you can do a holistic view, as we say. You look at the whole factory and the whole system. And that's why you can do the management in a totally different way based on these enormous amounts of data that you collect into the system. And by doing that right, you save 20 or 30% energy. Extreme cases, over 50%. So this is what we're going to take, not just for the projects we do today, like in China, but take globally and create that kind of global leading software for every single factory in the world, regardless of size, that could start doing exactly what we're doing today with our Chinese customers. A little bit of the history to put it in perspective. Enersize started 2010, as I said, like an Internet of Things measure energy company. That proved to be a little bit too wide. So suddenly, by serendipity, the guy who knew compressed air came in, and you started working that, and they realized there is something here. We can really do this. And they kept on working, and they developed software, and they had a lot of cost, and the company ran into some trouble, caused a restructuring period. At the end of this restructuring period, suddenly the market started to be mature enough for what Enersize offered. And Sami came in as a CEO in the company. And basically in 2016, the company had its market breakthrough. We got our second large contract with the Photon Motor Company, also using the name brand Borgward. You saw it in the movie. And we also had this first project that we did with BOE, Beijing Optoelectronics, the world's third largest manufacturer of flat screens, mobile phones, TVs, etc. And we actually got our first payment from a revenue sharing program during 2016 from them of around 300,000 euros. And Sami has been working really hard the last 2 years, building up the sales pipeline. As you can see here, we have increased our sales pipeline with new projects in a really high pace. We have closed 5 new installation contracts just in the last 6 months. And we hope to announce even more contracts very soon here. We did a pre-IPO to finance the process up to the IPO here, and also these new contracts in the shift of the year 2016-2017. At that point, we also got in 2 strategic investors. We got in Scania, who everyone know, Scania Growth Capital, because they want to be world leading in smart factories, and they saw what Enersize is doing applies to all these factories. And they're also part of the Volkswagen Group and MAN Group. So they also see how this could be applied to that whole group. We also got in Dürr, a listed German company who is specialized in painting systems for vehicle industry. They have 70% of the global market, selling to all the large brands. Very much in China, very much in the European brands, but basically all over the globe. And Scania has also committed to subscribe in the IPO that's coming up now. So this is a little bit of a short relapse of the history of Enersize. And China is an interesting thing. I mean, Enersize ended up doing business in China almost by accident. And we're very proud that we are in China because that makes a big difference. As you can see here, 1 kilowatt hour of electricity in China is 680 grams of CO2. And just 4 years ago, it was 750 grams. So China is one of the most aggressive countries in the world in reducing emissions. If you go to China, you'll see electric motorcycles all over the street because they decided we can't have with normal combustion engines, so we took them away. Took 2 weeks, and then it was a total different playing ground. So that's how it works in China. They're very aggressive on this. As I said before, you can see here, compressed air is very, very inefficient. It takes about 10 to 20 kilowatt hours to produce 1 kilowatt hour of usable compressed air energy. And doing this in Sweden does not make that much sense compared to China from a global perspective. We have very much renewable energy, very much water power. But even if you compare to the EU, we think we're very proud that we do this in China and help out. And of course, China is the world's metropole, the center of production, where we find these really big factories, where we can do this really big project with really big profits. A little bit, I talked about the history, a little bit about the future. So first of all, we have a viable China business, and we have lots of contracts coming in on that side, and more to come. And some is primarily working that leg of our company. And we have an ambitious plan here to grow that sales really strong the coming 2 years. And also to be profitable by 2019, but still keep a strong growth. So we won't show like a 40% profit margin. That's not the purpose. We want to keep growing, but still doing it with our under profitability. The other leg is the software development. To go from what we have today, what could be described as a very advanced software to collect Internet of Things, collect data, to do the analysis and have tools that help the expert do analysis, to actually make a fully autonomous software, which you can send to a partner in Brazil, and they can go and install it in the factory, and the software will tell them, change this, change these compressor parameters, and bam, you're saving 20% of the energy. By doing that, we can go globally through local partners, and we can also go down to smaller factories where it's viable to have a bigger project. And this, I think, is very unique for us. The market today is very fragmented. There is a lot of small local players, and trying to do some kind of energy efficiency project maybe, or they're selling compressors or whatever, installing pipelines. There is no one supplier of compressed air systems in the world. Every plant has like 5 to 10 suppliers providing the compressed air system. There's no one taking the full responsibility for it. And that's where we come in and can make these efficiency improvements. So this is the plan forward, and that kind of software will of course use artificial intelligence and different kind of advanced analytics on these things. And one key of this is to have a lot of sensors in it, more sensors than any human can comprehend. You have to move over to computers to be able to do this kind of analysis. I talked about the business model shortly before, and we think basically what we offer the customers is to get control of their compressed air system. The key point is basically to say, well, if the compressed air system stops, your factory stops, that's very expensive for you. We go in there and we're going to fix that for you. At the same time, it's going to be much more energy efficient once we're finished with it. So basically, what we can gain in energy efficiency is enough to pay us what we need. So we go in and do the projects where we offer the customer to pay nothing. So we take the initial cost because we know it's quite small compared to the beneficial savings that can be created. And then we make a revenue sharing contract with the customer going for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Usually between 3 to 5 years, I would say. Where we split the revenue, preferably more in the beginning to recoup our investments. We also have some partners who usually tag in on the share of the customer. Typically in China, we have local partners who help us get the deals and arrange for payments, all this stuff. Also help with doing some savings actions when needed in the plants. And then what we want to transfer also, this is also important why we're doing this kind of software, because we want to have a lifelong customer relationship. So we want the software to be able to monitor the system forever. And then we want a fee based on the savings you create. Because what we've seen, and what's quite unique, is that if you leave these systems alone for 2 months, all the savings are gone. Because someone thought something was wrong and started changing the parameters, and then they don't know what they have done, and suddenly the savings are gone. So one important thing in the systems we already have today, but especially in the future, is that the system must understand what's happening and detect these kind of changes. So it's not one guy in the production running around and changing a little bit because he thinks it will improve it, and suddenly all the savings are gone. And worst of all, the system just stops in the middle of production. So this is a little bit of our project pipeline. Today we have 7 major projects ongoing in 7 pilot plants. 2 of those are in the revenue sharing phase. It's Photon just entering the revenue sharing phase, and BOE has been there for a while. And each of these customers have a lot more plants. That's typical China. Like BOE is actually one of the smallest plants. We just announced that we got a second contract with BOE in one of the bigger plants. It's 3 times as big as the one we did as a pilot. Actually, it's so big that the electricity consumption is equivalent to a Swedish city of about 20,000 households. So that's an impressive amount of energy being used in one factory, and BOE have 8. We have 3 more customer installations that are planned for this quarter. We already finalized 2 of those and start doing the measurements. And 2 of those are recurring customers. It's BOE, as I said, and also Photon have a joint venture with Cummins where they produce diesel engines, which is also due to successful first project. We got the reference to go to the next one. And Photon also has 7 plants, I think, in China. And then, of course, we have a pipeline full of negotiations with Sam managed here. I think about over 35 customers. One single customer, they're making cans for drinking, for soda and stuff like that, and also some other metal products. They have 24 plants, just one customer. And we're doing pre-studies in a lot of these at the moment. And of course, these really big factories with really big numbers, they add up to a lot of potential savings for us. So I think this is really bright future. So it's process that will have to be done the coming 2 years here. A little more about the projects just to get you feeling of it. We have BOE here at the end. They have a lot of other plants. We have Photon Motor Company. We have initial measurements ongoing in 2 flat glass plants, where they manufacture basically every flat glass you can see. Flat glass is specialized on doing solar panel backings as well. If you see the bird nest in Beijing, the Olympic Stadium, all the glass was produced by flat glass for that one. Jofa is another, it's a steel, welded steel manufacturer, one of the world's largest. We also have initial measurements going on there and learning more about the steel industry, because they also use nitrogen and oxygen compressors, so it's a bit different for us, but we're learning. And we already have a sharing contract, which we can start with the push of a button once we feel we've learned enough and can do the right savings in that kind of environment as well. And then we have 2 older contracts that they basically are monitoring contract at the moment with SSAB and Stora Enso. But of course, we're now moving into more trying to expand into Europe. We want to have an European sales manager by this year. And that would also be included to address the Stora Enso and SSAB, because they also have a lot of other factories. And our software, since we did this first project with them, has been evolved so much. So it's coming basically with a completely new offer to them. Yeah, this is a little bit of those 5 deals that we closed last 6 months. Like I said, 2 of them are already up and running measurements, 2 glass plants. And BOE's second plant has been accepted, but we have not yet started the installation. It's being started at the moment. Planning is ongoing. Same thing, Photon Cummins. And then we have an interesting customer, BBMG. BBMG is one of China's largest manufacturers of building material, cement, gypsum, whatever you name it. So they have so many plants, I don't even know how to count them. So this is a good foot in the door at that company. And we will announce more deals. And we will have them as press releases, and we will have them on our homepage. So if you follow that, you will get a good grip of what's happening. Little example of, you see, there is a lot of different companies. Compressed air is used everywhere. So we can go for the chemical factories, we go to metal cans, we go to different European car brands in China where they have the plants. This is just stock images, so doesn't really show the right customers by some reasons. You see rolled steel plants, tire manufacturers, chemical plants. Compressed air is used everywhere. For us, at the moment, it's just getting the right size of the factory. So we can do a very successful project there and with a potential big savings. Little quick look on the board of directors. It's me here, Sami talked about, and we also have Thomas Bengtsson, who's also Swedish speaking, also great experience from the Swedish market, also in Cleantech Invest board. So we're very glad that we could convince him to come to us as well. And then we have Purita Mikkonen, also a very good person to have in the board, I think. Very much experience from China, very much experience from financing. Ex-Harvard student. Well, she's a brilliant person to have in the board, I think. Management-wise, we also have a really strong team. We have some of the best software brains I know recruited. We have some technical directors that really help us tuning these processes we have in China and have with the partners and customers. We're quite a small team at the moment, but we're growing really quickly here. About 7 or 8 full-time resources in Helsinki. We are 2 in Lund in our development office, and we're about 5 in China, in Shanghai. I think we're even 7 now. It's keep getting outdated. Largest owner is Cleantech Invest. Sami Mykkänen is a CEO, and Sami has been working almost for free for the company for a couple of years to bring it on the feet. So basically, after the restructuring, Sami took the company on his shoulders and started getting in these customer deals. So we're very glad for that, and we're very glad to have him as a big owner. And then we have a couple of Finnish family offices who also are having big stakes in the company. And then there is a lot of pre-IPO participants. It's Scania and it's Dürr. So basically, we just sent out the prospectus. So here's a little summary of how the investment looked like. And I think the most important thing is to remember subscription period. 27th of April, so starting Thursday, going until 11th of May. It's the whole IPO round is about 28 million Swedish kroners. Valuation at 173 million Swedish kroners. And from that IPO round, we have already secured about 11.9 million Swedish kroners from existing owners, mainly pre-IPO investors, and Scania is among them. And there, of course, if you look at the prospectus, you will see there are some nice icing on the cake. Both me and Sami and basically all the major investors have signed lock-up agreements, so we won't sell a bigger part of our shares for the coming year, which we anyway wouldn't do. We aim to show the value in Enersize during the coming year. We aim to set a lot of new projects. First day of trading, 15th of June, and you find all information at energize.com. And basically what we're going to use the money for is twofold. It's further developing our software, and it's developing the market and sales, especially in China, but also growing that in Europe. So that's basically what I had to say.
Excellent, Christian. Yeah, one more slide, or that's the last one?
That's the last slide, yeah.
And we'll leave it on.
Yeah.
Are there any questions for Christian? Yeah. Do we have the mic? Well, otherwise I will repeat your... No, there's the mic.
I wonder about this sharing exercise. One would imagine that the clients aren't used to sharing. They want to pay a certain price and that's it. And it should be very difficult to monitor a sharing exercise. What is it you are being paid for? Is it revenue? Is it savings? And how there are all kind of parameters. I mean, they can change something in their process that saves money that has nothing to do with compressed air and so on and so forth. So how do you get this sharing exercise accepted?
Yeah, okay, first of all I can say, I mean, the sharing is just for the compressed air system, which we measure very much in detail. So we can see this kind of change. We can see what it depends on. We can measure the changes we do on it. So that is, of course, always a challenge. But I think we're learning and we're developing it more and more. But I think basically what that implies is that today we have a margin to make the customers feel safe. And if that margin gets smaller, we get more money. Because, you know, the whole point of Enersize is getting this data out of the system to be able to make the savings. That also verifies what kind of savings we have done. So I think that's usually very clear. And as you say, if they change their production, we can see that in the data. And that's why I'm talking about the margins. Today, if we need to add an extra 15% margin, tomorrow we add 5. That's another 10% for us. So that's, of course, something where we try to tune it and hone it and get better at. You also said that customers had problem with the sharing model. I would say other way around. If you look at China, they're used to it. If you look at every customer we speak with here in Europe, they just love the idea. They say, I mean, that's a no-brainer. If you can do this, we don't have to pay, and we do a sharing because you have a product that helped us doing that. I mean, that's a free lunch for us, basically, especially as they actually get a much better compressed air system. And nobody else can do the same thing the way we do it. So I don't know if that was good enough answer for you. Or you have some more?
More questions?
Yeah.
I'll get back to you with the...
Yeah.
Joshua, does he have the mic?
I think the mic got caught up at the end point.
Maybe you need to devise another software that makes sure that you're not being cheated in these savings operations. Yeah,
but I mean, basically what we do is measure and analyze. I mean, we know what's going on much better than the other guys know. You know, it's if you would try to cheat and pull an energy meter, I mean, the system will say in 2 seconds that there is something wrong. So I think it's more of getting the customers to understand that this is the correct data. So they say, oh, I see, you know what you're doing. Little question you asking now to convince the customer that the data you see is really what you get. So I think that's maybe more, that would be the issue, to get the customers to understand it, so they see that the data is correct, and we don't have to have an argument about that, which we don't feel we're having right now. We're feeling we are on top of that, but it can always get better.
Should the customer want to end this joint venture, would they still be able to enjoy the same optimization, or would it roll back?
Yeah, as I said before, you know, if you would opt out on continuing our monitoring, basically the savings goes away by themselves. You lose the control of them, and the system constantly changes. As you asked before, what happens if the production line changes, the way you do it, or you open another production line? That suddenly requires the compressed air system to adapt. So our analysis is continuous. So usually we have seen that early on, 2 or 3 months. If you just shut off the system and you don't keep track of what's happening, you lose all savings.
More questions? Yes, please.
2 questions. How much do you need your own staff to monitor these projects? Do you need your own staff to be at the factories continuously or now and then? So what is your running cost for operating these these systems in each plant? This is the first question.
Yeah.
And maybe you can take that first.
Yeah, I can take that one first. Yeah. Basically, we run that on a very small team. Today, it's exactly what you say. We need to have human intervention, you know, looking at the data and doing those kinds of decisions. And that's what we see. Today, we have accumulated so much data from so many large factories, and we have done our prototypes. So we see we can do this, what nobody else can do. We can do this analyze automated. So we can skip all that personnel, all those experts, and basically just let the software do the analysis and tell us what to do. And that's what we're going to aim to do, use the coming 2 years to develop so that we also can roll that out globally, because then we don't need to have expert resources running around all over the world. We can still go out and have local partners take the software, install it, and see what the result is.
Okay, but in the beginning now, in the beginning, you will need to have some cost in running the systems. That's it.
Yeah, right now we do that. And we estimate, if you compare about 5 to 10% of the total savings that a project can generate is our cost for a whole project today.
Okay. Second question. This money, 28 million kronors, do you estimate that these will be enough for you to reach a profitable stage?
Yeah, definitely. Of course, we might see how the strategy evolves on the market. If we see that we can get the bigger market quicker, it might be that we go out and ask for more money for that. But definitely it will be enough for us.
I had one more question over here.
Ja, skulle du kunna berätta lite om ledtiden från när man har förstudie och sen till betalning och så vidare?
Yeah.
Nu har ni bara haft en deal, men...
Yeah, but it's a good question. It's about, you asked how long time does it basically take from you starting meeting the customer, you make the pre-study, and you get the project. And I can say, if you look at our first project, I would say years. But we learned a lot. So from first project, it took basically 2 years. To second one, I think lead time from meeting customer to start the pre-study was about 1-2 months, and then totally 5 months until we started the projects. The newer project we basically have less than 1 month lead time from meeting the customer to actually starting up the projects, and then maybe 1 to 3 months of measuring and negotiation on how to proceed with the project. Something like that is where we aim and where we feel we are comfortable with today.
Was there one more question here somewhere? One here and then one in the back, Joshua.
Jag tänkte på den här revenue share-affärsmodellen. Hur fördelas intäkterna där? Ponera att ni sparar in 10 miljoner för fabriken. Hur ser fördelningen ut?
Yeah, so the question was the revenue share model. How does the split between us and the customer look like? Basically, I mean, we're trying to get over a 4-year period something about 40 to 60%. That's our current model. But we see that what we can provide in better operation quality on the compressed air system is worth more for the customers. So of course we're going to try to raise that level for ourselves. When our software gets better and better, it's possible for us to raise that level. But about something like 40-60%, and first year we're trying to get about 80%. Even some customers, we have a 3-month catch-up period where we try to get 100% of the savings.
2 jättekorta frågor bara. Ungefär, så man kan räkna lite på projektet, liksom hur skalbart det är. En genomsnittlig affär, vad tror du kan handla om? Lite grann vilka intäkter kan det ge? Jag menar, om det handlar om besparing på 10 miljoner så är det 4-6 miljoner. Är det där vi hamnar eller högre eller
Yeah,
lägre?
the size of the project. And yeah, it varies a lot. I think the bottom project which we would take with our current model is something like, what do you say, Sami, 200K euro savings a year? About. Below that, we won't go with our current model, where we have our own expert, and we have to use people to look at the data and analyze it. But going to the fully automated software, there is basically no limit on how small projects you could do.
En sista kort fråga bara. Den här pre-IPO ni gjorde, till vilken värdering var det?
Yeah, I mean, the valuation of that was with a discount, something like just over 20% from the IPO pricing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then there was one question in the back, I think. Then we have one over here.
For me, it's very straightforward for already existing plants. My question is that, what if, as an investor, I'm going to implement a new plant, and will it be still possible to employ your solutions? And if yes, how are you going to implement the design, and how the collaboration will work?
Yeah, but that's a good question. We all have been asked that by our customers, and you would think that when you design a total new plant, that the compressed air system would work perfectly, but it doesn't. Even if one of the big reasons is that you try to design a new plant and you try to use as less compressed air as possible because you know it's a very bad mean of transporting energy. But at the end, when you start the production line, the engineers have used a lot of compressed air to be able to do what they need to do. So basically the same thing applies to a brand new factory. But we have some customers who asked us to come in an earlier stage, which we're of course very happy for, to help us kind of optimize it already before. But that's of course kind of a special deal. But still, the monitoring software and the monitoring part is exactly the same as for the other customers, to keep the savings, to keep the low energy usage and the efficient system operating all during time, so you don't lose it during time.
Yeah, hi. I just was curious about the software, because after 4 to 5 years of splitting revenue, the software would be free for the customer. I mean, the updates and for the software would cost, and how do you plan on doing that?
Yeah, basically, well, it's a little bit different. Basically, we do a project of 3 to 4 years, and where we go to the factory, we do the measurement, we use the software, but we also take the responsibility to actually make the savings, do that kind of adjustments or whatever needs to be fixed in there. If it's an upgrade of the infrastructure, there is a valve that is way too small. We could change that valve, for example. That we do over 3 to 4 years. Then when it comes to the software, we have a license model where we ask for 20% of the kept savings during the lifetime. So we're actually going to bill them for life with software.
Okay, we've had a lot of good questions. I'll allow one last, then we'll move on. Christian will, of course, also stay on here, and Sami as well, so you can talk to them both individually as well.
Well, mine is not a question, but it's a comment. Thank you, Christian. I have to say that I have presented Enersize in Los Angeles to a couple of crowds, and Gudrun Giddings, who now became our board member, the Swedish-born Hollywood producer, when I presented Enersize as part of the portfolio, he invited me to speak at the Swedish-American Chamber of Commerce happening, and he said to me, "Lassi, please come. You can come as long as you don't talk about the industrial compressed air, which is so boring that it doesn't interest anybody." But I said, I insist on talking about it because it's such a big deal, but I couldn't do such an inspiring job as you did, so thank you.
Thank you, sir.
That was a good one. Thank you very much, Christian.